Yo, welcome to a replay analysis, guys. We got a Zerg versus Terran. We're going to be looking at the Zerg's perspective. This is Diamond level StarCraft 2. And the way this works is we're going to help this guy, Gary Rage, figure out what he's doing right, what he's doing wrong, what he could be doing better. Already, he's letting himself larva cap at the very start of the game for like 2 seconds, 1 second. Not great, but not the end of the world. Wait, you did do that, right? I'm not crazy. I'm just to make sure I'm not giving you shit for no reason. Because I kind of half paid attention to that. You can make your overlord right now. Yeah, you're not larva. Yeah, you. It was like 1 second. It's fine. 1 to 2 seconds. I wasn't wrong. Not the end of the world, but yeah, never want to do stuff like that. For people who don't know this is something this is like the biggest thing Zerg. And obviously, like, what just happened is very minor, but it will add up over the game if it doesn't stop happening. And the reason why it's so important, and some people don't know this, but Zerg has 2 forms of generating larva. One is larva inject, which is 3 larva every 30 seconds. And one is automated larva, which is 1 larva every 10 seconds, which adds up to 3 every 30. It's actually better than larva inject because you get it on every 10-second interval, so you get larva faster that way. You get only your 3rd larva at 30, not all 3 at 30. And people who let their larva cap ever, what happens with a hatchery is, if you ever have 3 larvae sitting on it, larva stops generating. It doesn't produce any more larvae. The only way to continue to get larvae on a hatchery once it has 3 is you inject pops off, and that adds on top of what you already had above 3, or 3 or above that. So you definitely don't want to mess that up. It's horrible for Zerg. It's 50% of all of your production gets wiped out if you let that happen, like during the time that it's happening. So definitely never let that happen, or else you're gonna have like a really shitty build. All right, your hatchery goes down at a fine time. 16 hatch. You didn't really wait too long for it. Your overlord's coming over. I'm not a huge fan of this though. I mean, it is what it is, but I think, honestly, you should leave your overlord, like, near the front of your base rather than go scout for proxies, because you don't know what side the proxy can be on, because believe it or not, there could be a proxy right here. Even though your overlord's scouted this way, the time it takes for the overlord to scout from here to, like, right there would be the time it would take for SCVs to run around and build proxies. So you would literally miss it if that was the case. Unless your second overlord followed the first overlord, then you would catch it, obviously. Just keep that in mind. I'm glad you turned it around. I'm glad you're not like going fucking ham way over here. That makes me happy for you. Because a lot of times too, just to throw it out there for other people to understand, if you actually do get proxied as well, your overlord will see some type of a proxy happening at your base before your spawning pool is even done. So you could still make lings immediately right as your pool's done and go from there and pull drones and stuff as it starts. Yeah, this overlord's gonna probably die. There's no like dead space here. And then next time, Gary Rage. Excuse me, Jesus. I would say, honestly, fight the SCV with your drone. A drone beats an SCV. All you have to do to beat an SCV with a drone is auto attack it, and then it doesn't matter if you auto attack it and you pull back when it's at 35 health, or if it's at 5 health, but you just have to pull the drone back at some point during the fight with the SCV for about like 3 to 4 seconds, and it will give you the difference of enough time for regeneration to go to surpass 45 hit points. So, Mini Wing and Atomic Kupe, thank you guys for the sub and the bits. I appreciate you. Thank you guys. So basically, if you think about it, an SCV has 45 health, okay? It's got 45 health. A drone has 40 hit points. But a drone regenerates 1 health every 3 seconds. So you're going to definitely regenerate health during the fight, right? And if you just run away while you can regenerate for a couple seconds after you hit the SCV at least once, you're going to turn the fight into a situation where now you have 45 and he'll have 40. he'll always have 5 less than, he'll have like the interval of 5 less than you because you'll regenerate past 45. Like, you're gonna out regen his hit points. You're gonna have, it's not just 5, you're actually gonna have 10 more than him over time if you run away for a little bit. Because if you don't run away at all, you will regenerate hit points still, but there's always a chance that if you didn't hit first, you could still die. If you're taking it to the 45 versus 45 interval. So you want to take it to the 46 through 50 interval, which is why you run away for a few seconds. But you could easily kill an SCV with a drone. That's all you got to do. Just if the math doesn't make sense to you, and if you're like, wait, what the? I don't understand anything you just said. If you just run away with a drone after you both hit each other for like 4 seconds, you will always win the fight. That's all it is. And then you could also kill the SCV while taking your ideal third. This third's not that bad, but something I would say you didn't even need to do this where you like ran away and stuff. Also, especially since that you could even make it work even though he would go Reaper first. But because of how early you saw a Marine, you already know he's not going Reaper at all. Like, there's no Reaper first here. And just to throw it out there too, the best thing you could have done as well, right here, for future games, the best thing you could have done right here with your Overlord, because there's nothing out here that you can really hide on. It's all just kind of open, and you would never really make it to that. That's super far down. Like, chances are low you're going to make it to the top of that. Yeah. What you could have done is you could have flew right into his base, and you could have flown over the cliff. And if the Marine goes down and around, you start flying up and around. And if the Marine goes up and around, you fly into his base deeper and fly up to the cliff up here. And every time you watch him go one way or the other, you start hugging the cliff one way or the other. It is a way that you probably, that would have probably been your most likely chance of surviving. But either way, getting Overlord caught like right where it is, it's probably going to die. Just throw it out there. All right, so going back to where you just were. Okay. So you got 100 gas, and you started Zergling speed. Also, Mouth Puncher, thank you very much for the 34-month resub, man. Appreciate you. I do like that you started Zergling speed after your third base. I prefer that too. That's way better. You don't need to rush Zergling speed super hard and delay your third, because you're gonna, if you're gonna be going for a third, you're gonna be doing like a defensive Zergling speed anyways. You're not doing some like all in with it where you're still mining gas and stuff like that. So yeah, I like the order of how you're doing things so far. You're injecting your main to bring your natural. Perfect. Make sure you spread your creep tumor towards your third as well, though, in the future. Like, where it is right now is totally fine. That's not a big deal. But definitely don't spread it to the left. If you start spreading it this way, it doesn't make any sense. That would only make sense if you took your third there. We'll see what you do when the time comes. How much larva do you have? You don't have any. That's good. Good shit. Proud of you. Make sure you start another queen ASAP, though. As soon as you can make another queen at your third base, start that. Or at your natural. Your third queen at the natural. Start it immediately. But don't prioritize that over your larva. Larva first, and then queen. But you're not making a queen, so that totally could be happening. And you also want to make sure, because you're going to make a queen, always have an Overlord in production too, and you do. So that's super good. Be very careful, too, about doing what you're doing right now. If this Terran player wanted to run his first 2 Hellions into your mineral line, it would happen before Zergling speed's done. And this queen would really want to be in position to help defend that, to add in damage to the Hellions to get rid of them. So the fact that you're starting your third queen super late, and you're running your second queen down to the third base to prep the third base with an injector, it's kind of scary. I think your third queen coming down here, or sorry, your second queen coming down here is actually fine. But it's scary that you're leaving yourself exposed with no queen at your natural because it's so late. Like this, you could seriously take a lot of damage on your drones right now if Hellions just came in your base like right now, and it would be 2 if it did. Which is, yeah, that's definitely scary. Your queen would never be able to go back in time to defend that before like 5 drones would die. I like your Overlord spread. I would want you to also spread Overlord like there with one of these and like there with another one, so you can spread your creep without having to get harassed by Hellions the entire time. You have a lot of larvae sitting on your hatcheries.
Evolution
So now you're kind of fucking it up. You're messing it up. You're doing it backwards. You're going queen before larva now. Don't do that. Don't ever do that. Like, queens are good. Queens are important. But there's only one reason why you would ever do this. And it's if you just scouted that you're going to get all in. If you scouted the Terran's base and there was no natural, there was no bunker, it was like a factory that's going to pump out like a siege tank and it's going to make like a liberator and he's going to push you with like 2 tanks, a liberator, and like 8 marines or something. Something weird like that. Stopping larva production just to start queens and then resume larva production would be fine. Because you're going into a defensive posture and you're hindering your economy, but you're going to do it to stay alive. That's fine. But if your opponent's playing macro and you're trying to play macro as well, going for queen, crazy, like heavy production of queens now, and just letting 7 larvae sit there, it's actually a mistake. Because 2 queens is the same cost as 6 larvae. And the faster you spend that larva, the faster you can not only make larva and queens at the same time and not have a problem. So you definitely don't want to leave your larva like that. And you're also going to larva cap, and you're going to have a smaller supply than you should going forward, which is not ideal, which is what we just talked about earlier. Because you're going to cap your hatcheries out. Okay, so you're kind of spending, but again, you have a lot of larvae. There you go. You spent it again. Good shit. Queens are always important, but not priority over drones if they're not getting attacked. Nice spore. Now you have 11 larvae. Brutal. And this is the kind of stuff we were talking about, right? If it keeps happening, this is painful. You also pulled your main queen down to your 3rd. I don't know if that's intentional. I hope it's not. If it is intentional, stop doing that. This queen should be definitely going back to the hatchery in the main, like, right now. If that starts missing injects for no reason, that's definitely pretty crappy. Your natural doesn't have a queen either. Do you... Okay. Okay, wait, you move the natural queen to the main. So, keep in mind, okay? Keep in mind, larva inject is a shorter duration than making a queen. It's 29 seconds versus 36. So if you do them at the same time, you're going to have a larva inject finish for 7 seconds of waiting time now to inject again, which means... And if you do that on multiple hatcheries, again, you're falling behind when you don't really want to be. And I don't think you need 4 queens grouped up right now to defend this moment of the game. Because again, you are not getting all in. It's just a bit excessive. Like 2 queens could be out here for sure because they're your creep queens, and you could be making more like you are, which is totally fine. But definitely, like, so notice, watch this. Your inject pops off, queen's not here. Inject is popping off, queen is not here yet. You're now just missing an inject again. You're missing like a 1/4 of an inject here before the queen's gonna come out and fix that. And that's multiple hatcheries. Like, think about it like this. Let's just do the numbers here, okay? Your inject pops off at 5:01, realistically. It pops on the ground right at 5:01. How much time goes by before you actually inject again? And if you did a perfect inject, your next inject will be popping off at 5:30 because it's a 29-second thing, and it popped off. The first one popped off at 5:01, so the next one will pop off 29 seconds later at 5:30. And you inject it at 5:16. So you literally missed half an inject on this hatchery. That's rough. Like that kind of shit adds up over time. And it's like, what's the cause here? Like, what's the trade-off? You have 4 queens standing there next to a creep tumor that are doing nothing. So like, sometimes it would make sense to do that. Again, if your opponent was all in and not macroing. But if your opponent is playing a standard game, there is not a lot of stuff that's going to happen to you. That's just going to kill your queens. You're not going to be like, oh my god, He's got like 20 Marines on my queens right now. I'm dead. It's gonna be like at most 4 Hellions and like a Reaper. And what you could do if you only had 2 queens injecting, or sorry, 2 queens spreading creep while you're waiting for the next 2 to build. You have like 3 injecting, 2 creep spreading, and 2 more in the hatcheries being made. What you could do is you could just back up to your hatchery and have a 3rd queen help, and you're great. Like 3 queens can beat 4 Hellions and a Reaper, no problem. And if you really needed to, you could also help with your Zerglings, which already have speed. If he like really dives on your creep. So be careful about that. Be careful about not stunting your own build more than you need to for no reason. It's important. Also, you're prioritizing your gas right now at every base. Okay, well, okay. You have 4 gases. It's not as bad. It's not as bad. I was going to, honestly, for a second there, I thought you had 6, but you have 4. Not as bad, but we'll see what you do with it. It's not that bad, though. It's actually fine. Yeah, your drone count's actually, it's actually okay for what you're doing. It's not the worst. I think your larva is not great, but your injects are, or your drone count's actually like for optimized saturation is actually okay. Okay, so he's pushing you now with an army. Doesn't really matter what it is. Obviously, it's Hellbat Marine. You haven't really given yourself a lot of tools to figure out what it's going to be this game, though, because you didn't get Overlord speed, so you have no idea what he's doing. You just know he expanded. This could be battlecruisers. This could be battle mech. This could be bio. This could literally be a 2-1-1 push. This could be anything, really, because you have no idea what it is. So unless you have like Zerglings kind of poking back and forth constantly to figure out what's going on, and an Overlord going in to figure out what he's doing, it's going to be really hard to read the build. But the fact that you have a Bane Nest and you have Lings and you have Queens, generally speaking, that's going to, most of the time, that's going to be okay. But like right now, you do not want to fight this without Banelings. And the fact that really sucks for you is that all your Zerglings are across the map. So you not only do you have to make Banes, you also have to run home first. So what you should do here is try to stall with your Queens while you make Banes. If you engage this with Zerglings, you're going to lose your 3rd. And when you stall with your Queens, you definitely don't want to tank it. You want to like drag it. Like I would say you need to evacuate this 3rd base up to like right here. Like get out of there. And then have the Queens like stutter step backwards, like drag them back. Keep like slowing them down, like keep just distracting them. Every time they turn around and attack the hatchery, attack them back. And every time they chase you, stutter step backwards and kite. Do not engage this until you have Banes. Not having Banes is a huge problem for you right now. And the fact that you're about to engage with your Zerglings, I feel like I'm about to watch you lose all your Lings and lose the 3rd base. Yeah, brutal. So we're gonna go back now for a second, because what we were afraid of happening literally just happened. Let's go back now for a second, and let's talk about things you can do differently to make sure that doesn't happen in the future. Because being blind against Terran is not a good idea. Terran is the race that has the most options for openers, and they're kind of contrasted. At least if it's Protoss, if you just make like Roach Queen, you're probably fine, regardless of what they do. But with Terran, it's kind of all over the place as to what can hit you.
Oh, yeah.
Yo, Barker Barbarian, thank you for the 43-month resub. Thank you. So what you could be doing right now, Gary Rage, is your first Overlord died across the map, right? That sucks. Always send like a backup Overlord to go across the map, and it's not a bad idea to send it to like the opposite side of the natural. So the first and also your first Overlord was kind of going towards like the main area, which is in itself kind of like crazy. You probably want to send your first Overlord on this map because there's no hiding spot closer to like right there. initially. That way, if you get caught like right there, instead of being caught like right there, you can just go to the cliff. Because yeah, you're taking a different angle when you go towards like this area. So if you ever scout like on the ramp to see the ramp and the natural and shit, that's actually fine as long as the map offers you a hiding spot that you can quickly fall back to. Like if there was a cliff right here that you could hide on, that'd be totally fine. But this map particularly, and there's like another one in the ladder pool that's just like this, don't try to like send it more towards where it has an escape plan in case the guy goes marine first. Secondly, send a second overlord to like the other side of the base, like behind the main or something. That way, around 4 minutes, you can go to the Terran's base, whether you do or don't have Zerglings, or whether you do or don't have overlord speed. It's a good idea. So if you notice, you got in and you saw 2 Hellions. Good scout. Honestly, that was a good scout. You saw a bunker, which is definitely a sign that this guy's probably not making like. He's probably teching pretty hard. He's probably, I don't know. The bunker is definitely a defensive posture. Like, it doesn't have to mean necessarily something specifically, but it definitely means that this guy's probably not super confident because he might be teching really hard. He might be going for a third base. This would make me think it's more likely going to be a battlecruiser build, or it's more likely going to be like a really fucking greedy third. One or the other. Like, he's not going to be going for like a lot of Hellions, or he's not going to be going for siege tanks, or he's not going to be having like triple racks production. Like, he's probably not sure if he's going to die if you show up and attack him. And most of the time that's because people are either teching really hard or they have a third command center. They're ecoing really hard. So a future scout is kind of important here. And this would be the perfect time if you had an overlord where you'd be diving it into his base. And if you were, you could be like going into his base right now, and by like 4:30 you would see what's going on. If you don't have overlord speed and your overlord's like right there, you would be able to see everything here by like 4:30 for sure. Like maybe even like 4:25. And then scouting the front of his base, if you do it with another Zergling again, that's totally fine. You're kind of just poking around for, you know, you're poking the front, not actually seeing the front door, but you're kind of walking around his base. So this is not actually any information at all right now. It's just showing you that, oh, there's not a third down yet. And no Terran is ever going to take a third at the third this fucking fast. It's just not going to happen. So this actually isn't giving you any info right now. It's nice, but it tells you nothing. And then same thing here. If your other Zergling goes down to this spot, again, it tells you nothing. You're scouting for proxies, which is great and all, but it tells you nothing. That Zergling just went in and you moved it in for a second. Excuse me, Jesus. So the Zergling goes in, and you just saw another Hellion, if you were paying attention, while 2 more Hellions are up here. So you know this guy's making multiple Hellions. It's fine. And you also saw more Marines not standing inside the bunker. So if you're paying attention to that, you know he's got Marine Hellion. Cool. But again, it doesn't tell you a lot. It really doesn't tell you a whole lot. It's very limited info. But if you saw the main with an Overlord, you could see no third command center, and you could see 111. 111 is definitely a build that can harass a Zerg player. It's not like, oh, he's going to be super passive and defensive now. No, 111, generally speaking, this is not all in. It's not all in, but it is aggression. And there's 2 kinds of aggression early game. There's all-in aggression, and there's harassment aggression. So I would 100% be expecting him to harass you. And what does that mean if you were to figure this out? If you had an Overlord tell you this, there's one response that you should take to this. And that response is, don't attack him. Do not attack. Defend it. You have a third base. You're droning your third base. Use your creep to your advantage. Use your queens to your advantage. And defend your base. Do not walk across the map and attack him. Now, you walked across the map to set up an attack on him because you had no idea what he was doing. So you definitely got to fix that in the future. And you got to actually start playing logically and not randomly. That is something you'll have to start doing, unless you'll have games like this where I'm not going to lie, the way your hatchery just died when we just watched it a minute ago, the game's over already. Versus any Terran that's decent at the game, you've already lost the game. There's no coming back from that. You're fucking dead. You know, you can't just lose your third, then send your drones across the entire fucking map around the world and be like, I'm in a good position now. You're like already dead if that happens. That's not what that's not how you want the game to go. So you want to prevent the game from turning into that at all costs. And you got to think to yourself, what is my build going to be good against based on what we're doing? If he's 2-base harassing you and you're 3-base ecoing, you should be the one defending because you also get creep and you get queen advantage, which aren't going to be helping you with an attack. If you attack him, queens and creep are gone. They're just not part of the equation now. So your attack is going to be very crap because you're not investing into it either. You're investing into drones, so your attack is very limited. So keep that in mind. That's important. That's important to like read games like this. You want to know how to read a game and actually utilize it to like your advantage and not just make random choices. And now we'll speed it forward because you don't scout again and you just get blindsided by this. And it shows up, it does all the damage. So now this is where we left off. And at this point in this game, like I said before, you are not in a great spot because 9 times out of 10, a Terran player is going to take a 3rd base while they do this. And now you're on 2 bases Zerg versus a 3-base Terran, and your 3rd base isn't even, your new 3rd is not even done yet. So if you look at his base, I will not be surprised if it be the 3rd, just like that. And he's actually got a 4th base already started. So, and to be fair, he can totally do this because he just killed your army and your economy. Like, you took a ton of damage there. You lost all your queens, you lost all your lings, you lost your hatchery, and you lost some of your drones. Now, this, how you're pushing into this to attack this is kind of questionable, I would say. Just kidding, it's not questionable. You have Baneling speed. It's not questionable anymore. You engaged like right as you guys are right as you got Bane speed, so it's actually fine. Your odds of having a good engagement now are way higher. I had that like on super speed. So yeah, I think it's fine. You're engaging on creep. He's deep on creep. You can save your creep, which would be nice. And you have Bane speed. This is fine. However, not injecting your hatcheries again. You lost all your queens, and now you pulled all your queens, and now you have no queens injecting shit. And you're also supply blocked massively, and you can't even make queens. This game is starting off as a train wreck right now. And it's all because you were surprised and you didn't know what he was doing. And now look at all this larva you have sitting there too. It's too much. If you just have a little bit of a better read in the early game, you won't play so panicky and fall apart so hard. Like, you're definitely falling apart this game right now. First things first, at this point in the game, there's 2 things you should be doing. The first thing you should do is make this shit an overseer and go to his base right now. And the reason why is it's not just because, oh, you need to find out what he's doing compositionally. No, it's not the only thing why. You also need to find out how greedy is this guy being. If you start making drones against a Terran player who you could assume he's going to have a 3rd base, but let's say he doesn't. Let's say he made 5 more barracks on 2 bases. So let's say he opened up 1-1-1 and then he turned it into 6-1-1. And now he's going to do another timing behind that and have like 3 tanks and 30 Marines and 2 medevacs. You would just die. You would literally die if all you do right now is make drones, which is what you're doing. Right? Like you're pumping drones out to try to recover, which is not a bad idea if you know he's going for an expansion. But if you don't know anything, you're rolling the dice, hoping for the best. So, absolutely need to have a scout figure this shit out. Like, you should have scouted him as he was like... You Good God, I'm just like a cough right now. You would have wanted to have gotten a scout after, like, you started fighting his army, because you want to know for sure, is he following this up with a third or not? And if he's not, and you don't make army, or sorry, if he is following it up with a third and you don't make army, you're fine. But if he is not following it up with a third and you make no army again, you're just dead. So you need to read the game a little bit more throughout the game, for sure. Like, absolutely. And then if you had an overseer, not only would you be able to see the third, you'd see the fourth as well, which would be huge info. But not only that, you should be starting your fourth base again. And it could be for macro for army, or it could be for future economy development. Either way. And at this point too, at 7 minutes, almost 8 minutes now, your main base is going to start drying up. So you need to transfer your drones as well. So you need this fourth base regardless. Like, you're so far behind right now. This is awful to be on 3 bases at almost 8 minutes at this point. So you need to absolutely be taking a fourth immediately. You're behind as hell right now. Your fourth base should be, you know, like, this should have been your fourth, right? And your third base shouldn't have died, and then it would have been okay. But you got to recover that shit, because now you're just falling super far behind even more and more over time. So you are not taking your fourth, and you are not scouting. You are playing blind. And there's not a whole lot you can do for yourself when you play blind like this. If your opponent just does something that's not expected, you die. Because think about it like this. Think about it like this. What about that attack that just happened earlier makes you feel like this guy has to go bio? I don't feel like he does have to go bio. He attacked you with like 6 Marines, or like 8 Marines, and like 8 Hellbats, and 2 medevacs. That could very easily just have been 1 barracks production. And he could be going into multiple factories, or he could even be going into like a battlecruiser behind that if he really wanted to. And just imagine if a battlecruiser teleported into your base right now. You would be dead. You would literally just be dead. You're just kind of like crossing your fingers, hoping that he goes bio. So you definitely need to scout more. And this would be a great time again also to send like a Zergling across the map, and maybe pick up the Zelnaga towers, and also pick up ideas on the third base. Like, does he have a third? Does he not have a third? You're just cranking units right now. So here's the problem with what you're doing. You're making a bunch of army, and you have no idea what he's doing. At this point now, you have plenty of units, I would say, to defend yourself if you had a fourth base set up, if your opponent was also taking a fourth base himself. Because again, it's kind of like harass versus harass at that point. It's not like all in versus all in. Because neither one of you is investing into full economy or a full military. You're both investing into economy if you're doing that. But right now, you don't know that this guy has a fourth command center, and he does. And you're making a bunch of units that are not drones. So all this does to you is it puts you in a position now where you need to do damage, otherwise you're going to fall behind. Like, you can't sit here defensively on 3 bases, cranking out lings and bands, while your opponent takes 4 base economy, and then do nothing about that. Like, you're going to need to realize soon that you need to break something of his, otherwise you're sitting on a bunch of military and no drones, and you can't really afford to transition out of this. And if the Terran realizes what you're doing and just plays defensive, you're dead. I feel like the biggest thing you need to work on is game tempo. Like, realizing how to scout and play the game, and like, how should you be playing this point of the game? It's not always the same. Also, you haven't spread creep for the last like 4 minutes or like 3 minutes. Yeah, I feel like this creep has not moved since before this attack happened. Yeah, definitely work on that too. Try to always think to yourself, every time you inject your hatcheries, you're always spreading your creep tumors. Every time. You should honestly be spreading your creep tumors almost like twice as often as you inject, to be fair. But at the very least, if you, like, I would say, genuinely, if you can, at the very least, spread creep tumors once every time you inject, that's like diamond level creep spread, and that's acceptable for where you're at right now. But you could literally be spreading creep twice as you inject. So keep that in mind. Like, it's like 1.5, but yeah. It's still definitely more than once an eject, or sometimes you're not even ejecting at all. So Terran shows up and attacks you again, right? But now here's the problem with this attack, is this attack is abnormally large. But it's really not, though. It feels abnormally large because you're like, Jesus, that's a big army. And my army is like, I don't know if I can beat that. But at the same time, this is 9.5 minutes and you're only at 126 supply. At 9.5 minutes, you should be maxed out. You really should be. If not, you should be at least like 180. You know, if you had to trade some units early on. And the reason why this is happening to you is because you've had a couple problems with your macro throughout the game that we talked about early on before the attack even happened, but then that attack completely ruined you. And then you ruined your own macro after it massively as well. Like, you were massively supply blocked and you had all this larva sitting there. And it was just a bit, like really bad for you. So now you're in this really tight position. And if that ever happens to you, where you're just like, okay, everything engaged, and then Terran just kind of just absorbs it and doesn't really give a shit, that's literally a factor that shows you how much of a difference you guys are supply-wise. That should not happen on creep like that. Terran should not be able to shove into you on creep, Widow mindless and tankless, and just absorb a round of banelings. It just means that you didn't have enough banes and you didn't have enough units. So Terran just can do whatever he wants at this point and just shove you. Okay, so you got rid of it with your reinforcements. The only thing that's brutal about that, or rough for you about that, is that you did kill his ground army, but you killed none of his medevacs, and all that's going to happen now is his medevacs are going to regroup with the next army. So it's going to be painful. No, thank you, Jeffro. I'm doing a replay analysis, man. So nice. I still respond to him. Not only on stream, but also in game. Just so I'm not ignoring him, because I don't want to be mean. Alright, so now you have two Evos. You know, pumping 2-2 out. But your economy is not looking the greatest, right? Right now you have 66 drones. And that's not ideal. And you really need to scout the Terran's base with something at some point in time to ever get a read on the situation that you're in the game. Sitting on 66 drones the entire game is not ideal. That's not a healthy drone count. That's a drone count that's going to be... You're going to feel like it's a struggle to get to max. Especially if it's aggression in the game. And you're having to, like, trade units out. You're not going to feel like you can cleanly just always remax with a good bank. That's like 85 drones that will do that for you. That's like another saturated base. Like a fourth base. But 66 drones... It's not terrible, but you're going to always be having a hard time affording everything you want. Like, you're not going to really be able to afford transitions very easily. You're not going to be able to afford remaxes very easily. You're just going to struggle a little bit with your economy throughout the game. And if you had any type of a read, again, on what the hell this guy was doing economically and where he was at in the game, it would help give you an understanding as to, like, what you're capable of doing still. You have no read, though. Overseer or Zergling or any Changeling, anything. Scout with anything. You definitely need to scout more. You don't scout at all. Okay, so we see a planetary. The only problem with that, though, is you didn't even see the mineral line because you sent a Zergling and it died. So you have no idea what's there. You just know the base is there. And it's always not the best idea to just assume, oh, it's fully saturated with like 8 mules on it. It might not be. This guy might be macroing like shit. And if you were, let's just say hypothetically, let's say you saw 3 SCVs on this mineral line. That's not a healthy Terran. That's like, oh, this guy's been overly aggressive and I'm still not dead. I'm in a better position than I thought I was. I have more control in the game than I thought I did. I can do something now, like after killing his army, saturate your 4th base a bit more. As opposed to if it was already fully saturated, like already, maybe be careful now because this guy's got a lot more money to work with. So there's nothing there. There's nothing there. And that right there, we know how fast this guy took a 4th base, but that right there is literally a fault of the Terran. He just doesn't macro. This guy doesn't macro. He's had more than enough time to saturate a 4th base fully saturated and still have more supply than he does right now. If he would have done that. He just stopped making SCVs though for fucking no reason. Just because he got distracted by attacking or something. He's overwhelmed with the multitask. Okay, nice defense. It's fine. You defended most of your creep. It's good shit. Oh. At this point in the game, I would have said the very first time you saw a Liberator, put 1 spore at every single base like that. So you could have a spore crawler like right there, right now. You could have a spore crawler over here, a spore crawler over here, and you could have it just help rotate around to push this shit away. And you could also do what you're doing right now, which is pull your queens from your main and bring them down and shoot over the cliff, which is good. Mineral cluster expended. This is not a good idea. I don't know. No. Like, your attack right now, think about it. Just think about this for a second. Think about it for a second. Why are you like, so there's 2 problems with what you're doing right now. The first one is, where is the Terran's army? You don't know. And what if, right as you came right over here in the bottom right corner of the map, Terran started walking on your creep right here? What if that what if Terran's like right there right now and he's about to walk on your creep, and by chance, as you are here, Terran is now stemming forward and hitting your 3rd base? That's gonna be a huge problem for you. Very big problem. And you have to keep in mind, this army is very, 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 very low chance that this army is going to go win the game. Even if you make Banes on it. Even if you make Banes on it, very low chance. Because you're going to be losing your units as you kill shit. It's not like they stay alive forever. You're going to trade out, essentially, okay? The keyword here is you're going to trade. You're going to lose units to kill units. You're going to lose units to kill buildings. And you have to work through a planetary, a wall, a bunker, another wall with production. You have to work through like levels and layers of defense of the Terran. And this army isn't going to cut it to make it work. The only way this army would win the game right now is if this Terran just left. He didn't ever repair this and it just dies. And then he just also leaves his door open and doesn't do anything defensive. He doesn't micro at all. He doesn't raise depots. He lets you just run inside. And he's like, oh God. Oh, everything's getting swarmed. My production line's is all over for my production. We're dead now. That's the only way this would win. So it's a gamble. It's a very low chance of working. It requires the Terran to literally be AFK to work. I think you're overestimating how effective this is going to be. And you're not respecting how defensive this needs to be because you don't know where the Terran is. What I see happening in the future of this game is you're going to get attacked and you might attack him or you might turn around. If you turn around, you're going to be playing from behind because you're going to lose shit before you get back there. Or you guys will trade and you're going to kill and wash out you're going to kill maybe 1 base and wash out all your units here. And he's going to kill all your bases because Zerg is not like Terran. A Terran army doesn't trade itself away to kill hatcheries and drones. It stays the entire time. However, Lingbane trade themselves out to try and kill Terran bases. That's just how it works. So this is not the time to go all in here. Also, if you saw the economy, it would definitely not be the time to attack either. So you turn around because the medevac pulled you back. Whatever, it's fine. But again, if you attack right now, not ideal. Be very careful in the future too. Next time, if you ever attack rocks like that, make sure you green box, or like not green box, but like tell your banelings, hey banelings, control click, right click over here. Like do not let them detonate rocks if somehow they get like an angle to detonate. How's your injects going? You have no queens in your main. And you have 2 queens injecting 5 hatches. Not ideal. Not ideal at all. Gotta definitely fix that. Keep that. Stop dislodging all your queens. Take this shit. This is something I think will help you. Stop putting every queen you own in a control group. Stop it. Stop doing that. Where are all 6 of your queens right now? They're right there. Stop doing that. Leave more queens out of control group at hatcheries. Like, honestly, if you want a genuine number, you want to have 5 or 6 queens injecting hatcheries. If your economy is really good, and a really good economy again is like 85. If you're going for like a Zergling style, if your economy is not great, if it's like, let's say what it was before, if it's like 66, you could have like 5 queens and you're still great. That's plenty. You don't need to have a 6th queen injecting. And you don't, the great thing about it too is you don't need 6 queens injecting at 12 minutes. Or sorry, you don't need 6 queens creep spreading at 12 minutes. The way creep works is it's like a pendulum. It starts with really heavy on creep and really light on inject, or like maybe not even so much. It's almost even, but it's a little heavier on the creep side. It could be like 3 queens injecting and 5 queens spreading creep, and then suddenly you take a 4th base, and by the time you take a 4th base, you have 15 active creep tumors, which are spreading themselves at this point. So now suddenly 1 queen shifts out of the creep spreaders into the injectors, and now it's even 4-4. And then you take another base or a macro hatch, and you take another creep queen and put it into the injectors, and now it's 5-3. 5 inject, 3 creep spread. Because by the time you have like 5 injectors and 3 creep spreaders, again, you shouldn't just have 15 active tumors like you did when you had only 3 injectors and 5 creep spreaders. You should now have like 25 active tumors or like 28 active tumors. So it's not about spreading creep anymore with queens. It's about fixing creep with queens at that point. And you don't need 6 queens to fix a scan creep patch. Like if Terran comes over here, it scans it, kills like 8 tumors. You don't need 6 queens to fix that. You could literally fix it with 1 queen. You could be like, hey, 1 queen, put a tumor right at the edge of creep again after I push him away with my army. And then fill in the gaps as to whatever was scanned out. And 1 queen could easily do that with like 3 tumors. No problem. So you're like staying on the creep spread side of the game for way too long. This shit ends by like 7 minutes. The only time you should ever have queens like this on the map like this is if you're playing a queen style. Like if like you're going like ultraless queen, or if you're using queens as like the anti-air for like medevacs or like liberators, like in like aggressive armies. Like if for whatever reason you're using these queens as part of your push, which is rare as hell against Terran. It's more of a Protoss thing, I would say, because of like Stargate. But it's not really super common against Terran. You don't really need this many queens out here, and instead a lot of them should be back fixing your bases. You just have queens missing. It's not great. Not great.
Swarm has evolved.
Okay, so there's Terran. You're standing on the edge of creep right now. Not ideal. You're just letting yourself get picked apart. Wasn't that bad. You only lost like 10 Zerglings. Not that bad. You lost 1 Baneling as well. That's bad. You're now going to lose another like 10, 15 Lings and maybe a couple more Banes. And that's even worse. You were playing so impatient. Because what you just did is you just said, hey, army, run back. And half of it went down and around, and half of it went up and around. And now you're getting flustered, and you're losing a bunch of units before the fight even starts. And now you're telling everything to attack into it, and you're attacking into them in a single file line because you just created a massive line on the top side, which is now funneling in to the bottom side as your shit dies. Like, you don't want to engage with melee units into ranged units one at a time, one at a time, one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. You want to go all at once in every direction you can. So that was the worst attack you could have ever done. And it's because you got impatient. Like, notice how you even still almost won that fight? You botched that fight so hard, and you still almost won it. That just goes to show you that if you didn't play with so many mistakes, you could have won this game pretty well. Like definitely this, I feel like this game was your loss more so than his win. If you lose. I don't even know if you lose yet. We'll see in 2 minutes. But you definitely could fix a lot of shit you're doing, for sure. Like, fix your creep. Again, but you, like, notice how you don't need 5 queens to do this. 1 queen could go like this. 1 queen could go. Done. These queens have 200 energy. A tumor is 25. You could put 8 tumors down with each queen. Like, you don't need 5 queens here. And you didn't even... You made 1 tumor. Yeah, definitely stop using this many queens on eject. Or on, sorry, on creep. At this point in the game, it's so bad. They're just AFK doing nothing with your hatcheries. And then you're making more queens. Stop making so many queens. Stop making so many queens. This is excessive. Like, your phase of game where you need queens is over. You're just wasting your time. Yes, queen. Yeah, too many queens. You also need to scout, man. You're still not scouting. Your lack of scouting is something your biggest weakness.
Mineral cluster
in the future, Gary Rage, in the future, make like 3 overseers or like 2 overseers and make it a habit. Like once every 90 seconds or so, try to do it. Drop a couple changelings out and tell them to go around Terran's base. Just be like, literally just be like this. Say this is an overseer and say I dropped 2 changelings. Green box. I selected them. Right click, hold shift, right click, right click. Click one of them now, so I deselect the other one. Right click, shift, right click, shift, right click. And then look at the base. Like, get a read on how many workers this guy has. Get a read on if he's still making just Marines and Marauders. Is he going fucking Ghost now? Is he going into Widow Mines now? Is he going into more Libs? Is he making a fucking, like, is he Thoring you? Is he going back into Hellbats? Is he making tanks now? Like, what is this guy doing? And also, how many bases does he have? You don't scout enough at all. You're so blind all the time.
mineral field exhausted.
And it's not good. You're making random decisions, and you don't want to be playing like that. Like what? Like for instance, this counterattack, horrible counterattack. Let me tell you why. Number 1, Terran's defensive right now. He's not attacking you at the moment, and you're attacking with an army potentially by itself because you don't even know if there's a base here. You could be running into a fucking meat grinder right now. You haven't scouted this in the last like 5 minutes, like 7 minutes. Seriously, you have not scouted this for ever since like you had Lings coming over here to check the 3rd. It's been a while since you scouted this, and you're doing it for two things that are bad. The first one, like I just said, you don't even know if there's a base here. You could be running your Lings into death right now, which means you're just going to lose some until you react to it. And the second thing is you're doing it in a way as well where you're setting your units from your base all the way across. Like you'd be having them here and you're like on the minimap going there, now go there. So your Banelings have slower move speed than Zerglings do. And now your Zerglings are going way fucking faster than your Banes. Like your Banes have to hit the checkpoint still, and your Zerglings have all already hit it and they're going down already. So your army is going to spread itself out. And if there was an army there, your Banes are way the fuck up here and your army's way down here. Not ideal. I don't mind that you have units going to the other side of the map and other units on the other side of the map. That's totally fine. But I don't like how you are sending it into potential death and you're spreading out your Banes to your Lings.
Oh, yeah.
You should definitely be scouting with at least one Ling or a Changeling or something. And if there was a base here, you wouldn't want to just run into this. You'd want to gather outside of it. And then you could hit it at the same time as you hit somewhere else. Or if you're confident you can defend yourself because you have an idea what his army looks like and you're feeling good about it, you could hit him while he hits you with a counterattack and then also defend your base at the same time. You're just playing way too random. It's way too random. And again, if you initiate this attack right now, when he's not even attacking or you're not attacking, no one's attacking, odds of him defending this are going to go way up. Also, thank you for the sub, Andrew. Much love, man. I appreciate it. Like, this is what you need to understand. And now he's got a sensor tower. All of a sudden, he just finished a sensor tower. Now he sees what you're doing. Ah, shit, plan's foiled. But what if he was standing right here? What if a changeling saw he was standing right here with his army? And what if this was completely exposed? And what if you had a scout that told you that? And you just missed a massive opportunity to do damage here because you're not scouting anything and you're just AFK outside of his base. Now, think about this even further. What if there was a massive opportunity here and you took advantage of it, and then as soon as you took advantage of it, you predicted that the Terran is going to defend it because he's not being aggressive yet, and then you sent this army down to right there because you knew there was no base there and there is a base there. And then as soon as this Terran came back to defend, you already did the damage. You already killed all of his SCVs and maybe even killed the command center if you didn't lift it. But let's just say he did. Let's say he did lift it, but you still killed all the SCVs and you started killing some of the depots. Terran shows up and he starts stimming you down and he kills maybe like 10 Zerglings and you run away with like 2/3 of your army here. And as you run away and he runs after you, you run into his base with that army and you kill his planetary because now he's right there as you are now right there. And by the time he'll make the difference of going back again, that base is already dead. And the game's over. You don't scout, and you need to scout. You have no plan of attack. Like, you're just fucking blind, and you're just randomly throwing darts at a dartboard, being like, left. Like, you need to scout a little bit. It gives you ways to set up attacks. And now you're attacking. No, get the fuck out of there. Not only did he censor you, but he also scanned you. He's gonna be sitting there. Like, think about it logically. If you like, you should already expect that you should see that, right? If you think to yourself, I'm gonna just take a fight. No, why? What the fuck? Why are you gonna engage the entire army of Terran with a fraction of your army? That doesn't make any sense. Counterattack styles are supposed to kill economy, not army.
Oh,
because this army right here would decimate SCVs.
Less than 3.
It would not decimate a full-fledged army from Terran. Yo, Phalanx, thank you for the 34-month resub. You backed off, I'm glad. But at the same time, why not use this as an opportunity to go set up another attack on the other side? At the very least, spread your creep. That way you can make the fight always happen closer to his base. Like, there's a lot of ways you can control the game and can control the map as Zerg, and you're not really doing them as much as you would want to be. So, I know this is Diamond League. I'm being kind of tough on you, but I'm just giving you ideas as well. Something to grow into as a player. You gotta just definitely start thinking about, how do I read the game? And now he's attacking you. So here's what you watch this, okay? Let's just say you did this. Let's say you went select all army, control 1. Green boxed all your banelings only right there, and some of your Zerglings and hit Alt 2. And then you went 1, right click right there. 2, right click right there. And then while your 1 is coming over here, you could go 1 there, green box like half of 1 like that, or like this or whatever, and go, instead of having it all go there, while you green box like half of it, you could go right click right there. And then depending on where the Terran decides to go, there or there, you could green box this side or this side and rotate it behind him. So if he goes here, up this hallway, this side could be here, and this side could be told green box, right click right there. So now it comes around the back. And if the Terran goes all the way to the right and deep in this way, this side could sit there, and this side could go green box. Then you could click right there. And now suddenly you have a surround on either side of him. And you could just say 2, while you're doing this, 2, A move. The fucking mineral line. Because watch this. Terran's attacking you, right? Now, this is a good skill to have. This is something you should think about as a StarCraft 2 player. How much supply is available in StarCraft 2? How much supply is available? 200. This game doesn't go unlimited. It's 200. So, this right here is a rather large army. Now, if you don't know how much supply units costs, you should probably start paying attention to that. You should probably understand that. You should figure that out. But a Liberator is 3. A Widowmine is 2. A Medevac is 2. A Marauder is 2. A Hellbat is 2. And a Marine is 1. If I had to guess all the jelly beans in the jar right now, I would say this army is worth about 90 supply. And if we were to add it up, you could go, okay, let's do this on a calculator. We have 3 Liberators, which is 9 supply. Plus, we have 8 Hellbatch, which is 16 supply. Plus 5 Medevacs, which is 10 supply. Plus 6 Widowmines, which is 12 supply. Plus 12 Marauders, which is 24 supply. Plus 24, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36 Marines. 107 supply. This army is worth 170 supply, and I said, what, 90? So, it's a little bit bigger than I assumed. That's totally fine. You could tell it's a fucking huge army. This is the majority of what's Terran supply is. And the only reason, and then you got to also take into account that Terran also is going to have workers, just like everybody else does, right? So, if you haven't killed any SCVs this game, and this guy has had a unfiltered economy, it would be a safe bet to guess that this guy is going to have like 80 workers, roughly. Because 80 is usually what people go to when they play a macro game and nothing dies. That's generally where people like to go. So, that doesn't leave a lot of room for supply defending his base. So now that the Terran player is attacking into you, blah, 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 just like this. If you remember what I said, you could have grabbed a little bit of your Ling Bane and sent it here. And look what's here. There is a Widowmine. A Widowmine. 1 Widowmine is there. He has 2 supply defending this entire expansion. And it's wide open for the taking otherwise. So, you could do and that thing I told you earlier where I was like, grab some of your Ling Bane, hit Alt 2, and like send it down there. That would have been the equivalent of probably like 12 supply. It's very like 6 Banes and like 12 Zerglings. It's very light. Okay, so he's got Widowmines and he just showed you Widowmines. The worst thing in the world you can do is just A-move into this. Don't fucking do that. The way you want to micro against Widowmines is you want to grab some Banes and some Lings and send them in. Not all of them. You want to set the Widowmines off and then go. You don't want to go while they're all active. And you have to kind of make a balance based on how many units the Terran has. Because if you send in 2 Banelings and 4 Zerglings, Terran doesn't give a fuck. He's going to kill it before the Widowmines even shoot with his bio, and he's fine. So I would say against an army that's like this large, and versus your army, which is what looks like this, I would say you'd probably want to send in about like 8 Banelings, maybe 10 Banelings, and like 15 Zerglings. You'd want to set in a decent amount so that if the Terran doesn't stand his ground and kill your Zerglings with his bio, the Widow Mines would shoot the Zerglings, which would then AoE into the bio as well and go off, which is what you really want. And then if the Terran doesn't stand there to shoot the Zerglings because your Banelings are right behind it, running into his bio as well, he runs away from Baneling, and now Widow Mines shoot Zergling because Zergling took the initial like lock on of the Widow Mine because they're faster. So like Terran either stands there, kills your Lings, and gets AoE'd by Banes, ideally, and Widow Mines might still go off, or Terran runs away and ideally Widow Mines go off, and then maybe there's some friendly fire, but ideally the Widow Mines all go off. So you can like grab some of your units and go, hey, go in, and then try to spread them out so they don't all get AoE'd by one fucking Widow Mine. You can be like, 5 units go to the right, 5 units go to the left, 3 more units go to a little bit more to the right, 3 more units go a little bit more to the left, and you try to like fork them out a little bit so they get splat, like you get more Widow Mine shots off. You want to set them all off. And if the Terran uproots his Widow Mines, it's up to you then to make a decision call and go, should I now just pounce on that? Or should I repeat the process? It's really up to you. I would say without Drilling Claws, you could totally just go for it. And with Drilling Claws, questionable. But you're going in with everything. This is a no-no. This is a massive mistake. You're gonna get massively AoE'd. That one Widow Mine just wiped out probably 25 Zerglings. Ouch. Your impatience is a bit real. Imagine if there was no Widow Mine shots at all going off into that because you set them all off initially, that we just talked about, and then you just took them out. There's better ways to deal with Widow Mines than just ramming your head into it, hoping for the best, and staying clumped up. Nice counterattack though. I love it. That literally is massive. Great counterattack. Yeah, so you end up winning the game. So you ended up winning. Good job. But again, your biggest weaknesses are you have some fundamental problems with your macro. Again, always prioritize. You gotta understand: is the Terran aggressive or defensive? Is he aggressive or greedy? Don't prioritize defensive play like queens over larva if the Terran's playing greedy. Do not do that. Only make queens as a prio over larva if the Terran's aggressive, like he's not expanding. Then that's okay. Otherwise, you're just shooting yourself in the foot by making queens like you did early game and not using your larva properly as a priority. Then, on top of that, you really need to spread more creep, I would say. Your creep spread could be a lot better. It really could. And if you had more creep spread, it would give you a lot more control of the game. Your creep spread was kind of weak. Like you barely invested time into it. You need to definitely invest way more time into it. Like I said before, you could do about 2 fucking creep tumor spreads per inject. And that's if you're having like good injects. So try to put a little more effort into your creep. And then also try to put a little more effort. The biggest thing of all, put more effort into reading the game with Scout. You need to scout early game to find out what the hell you're up against so you don't get put into this like really weird spot right off the bat. It's really important to like have some idea what you're up against. So you're not doing shit like running across the map when it's the worst time ever. And now you're like, oh, fuck, my third's dead. Again, it made no sense to attack into a 2-base Terran when you're 3-base Zerg. Made no sense. And you didn't know that because you didn't scout anything. So you just randomly flipped the coin and were like, hopefully we're okay, and you weren't, and you took damage, like way more than you should have. So you definitely need to scout for openers, and you also definitely need to scout mid to late game for how to set up fights. And like how we talked about it, where I was like, make a changeling, go left and right, and set up an army over here and set up an army over there, and do the push and pull maneuver. That's so fucking good if you learn how to do that kind of an attack. It literally peels people apart. It's so important to be able to know how to fight like that. Because what you're doing, what your biggest problem is when you get into positions like this in the game, you're just playing impatient. I just see you being an impatient player that just like makes a blob and just runs your head into the wall and crosses your fingers going, I hope it wins. There's no actual strategy to it. It's just a fucking blob smashing a blob. And you could play so much more technical than that if you just think about it. And hopefully some of the stuff I said throughout this gives you some ideas on how to think about it in a new way. But you definitely can manipulate the map a lot more if you know where your opponent is. Because again, you are Zerg. You are the one who has mobility. You are the one who can do things like go, for instance, Changeling stands right here. Let's say Terran's army is right there. And he starts walking out. And you see the Terran now is right there. What if you had like 15 Banes and like 10 Zerglings run into the planetary as he's right there? And he just left his base and you just wiped out all of his SCVs at his planetary. And he's like, fuck. Okay, well now suddenly this attack is now way more pressure on it because I can't recover as easy because now I just lost a fucking mineral line. That sucks. Or what if you hit the orbital side and there's no planetary and now you're actually killing the command center because the planetary doesn't clean it up. And the Terran now has to go, do I want to go home and defend that or do I want to just go attack? And you could easily replace the Banes that die at like 10, 15 Banes with 10 or 15 new Banes immediately at home. And it's because you're giving yourself time because you're doing it as he starts leaving his base and he's giving you an opening. You slash him right in the back and you take advantage of that. You don't have to wait until he's in your fucking hatchery, in your base, to take an opening. You need to definitely scout more. It's a huge thing to do. It's something that's mandatory in this game as you go higher in the league, and you don't do enough of it. So definitely work on that. Try to do it more. And then remember what I said about the queens, about how to balance like the pendulum of injecting to creep spread. Eventually it should be like all inject and little creep. At the very end of the game, you could literally get away with one or two creepers and like 6 fucking injectors. And that's great. That's super good. Because again, you don't need 6 queens spreading creep at this point in the game. You really don't. You have active tumor. That's like a queen itself. That's like a queen itself. Blah, blah, blah. Every active tumor you have is like a queen because it's still spreading creep in that direction. You don't need to have this many active creep queens at this point in the game. Anyways, hopefully this helps. Anyone out there learn how to play Zerg better? You played a pretty decent game, but I mean, you definitely made a lot of mistakes, and you could have definitely played it a lot better. But I mean, you have a good foundation to build off of. Just keep in mind everything I said, and hopefully that helps you. Thank you for doing it, Gary. Appreciate you, man. And everyone who watched it, thanks for watching, guys. And I will see you guys in the next replay analysis, whenever and whatever it is. And until next time, good luck and peace, guys. See you.